Uh,
And hello, everybody, and welcome to a new episode of Haunted Histories, you lucky, lucky little beggars. Now, you know me, I do like to sort of chop and change the kind of podcast that I'm actually recording. Some are a bit more history, some are a bit more paranormal, some are a combination of the two. And today I've got as a guest, he's a good friend of mine. Well, I hope he agrees. He's a good friend of mine. He's absolutely lovely. We've known
Absolutely, yeah.
Oh, yeah, he agrees. We've known each other a few years. We met up for the first time, even though we only live about 25 miles apart from each other. We met up for the first time, courtesy of Mr. Paul Woodage a few years ago for a drink in Colchester, and we both felt a bit like fish out of water. We found out, but we ended up nattering away, and he was as lovely as he had been to me on social media. It's my very good friend, Mr. James Jefferies, the multi-talented assistant lecturer
Oh
at
gosh.
Essex University, the host of a new podcast which you must check out called Never Mind the Dam Busters, and also the author of a top secret book something to do with World War Twos and bombers, coming out in April 2026. Hey JJ, how's it going?
It's going good. I'm really excited about that. What a wonderful introduction as well.
Do you
Wow.
like that?
Thank you. Yeah, I really did. I really did, yeah.
Well, you are mega talented. I mean,
And well,
and you're lovely as well. So it's all good. It's all good. But we did both sit
thank you.
there feeling a bit like fish out of water when the conversations were going really techie, didn't we? On that, I mean,
Yeah.
it was an amazing evening.
Oh, it's brilliant.
I just sat there with my brain going boom, boom, boom with all the information.
Mm.
But I didn't know that you felt like that until afterwards. You messaged me and told me. You didn't know I'd felt like that until afterwards, and then we both realized we were both sitting there going, "What the hell am I doing here?"
I hide it well.
Yeah,
But yeah, I mean, it was fascinating. I say I was
it
hanging on
was.
Woody's words and everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I was going, oh gosh, should I be here a little bit?
Yeah. Yeah, but I was feeling like that too. I was thinking I ain't a specialist in any of this.
No.
And I could just
Well,
about keep
everyone,
up. I could just about keep up. I
yeah.
really wanted to shout Avro Lancaster or something like that, just to change the subject a wee bit.
Well, that's the thing. Everyone was really going into detail about stuff. I just went,
Mm.
oh my goodness, I'm an idiot. These
Yeah,
people really know their stuff.
yeah, yeah.
I'm going to say something wrong, but yeah, I'd say it was great and
It was a
absolutely loved
brilliant
it. But
it was a brilliant
yeah,
evening. And I sort of I'm in
yeah,
touch. I became friends with everyone who was there as well.
mm,
So I mean, you've got like Nikki and Nick, and Nikki's this
mm,
her
mm.
specialism was the land army, wasn't it?
That's right.
And then
Yeah,
obviously you got
yeah,
Woody, who, well, anything World War Two really, but specifically Normandy and
mm.
D-Day. And then you had Alex, who is ex-military himself anyway, who restores.
It's XRAF, isn't he?
I think he's done both. I'm sure he
Oh,
told
has
me
he?
he's been Army and RAF.
Oh,
He's
okay.
a very colourful
Yeah.
past. It did Alex when him and I started nattering. But he restores military vehicles and things like that. Some of
Mm,
the vehicles he's restored, we were talking about. I was trying to convince him to that one of them might be haunted. And he's like, well,
mm,
nothing ever happened when I've been there. And I said, well, let me see it and I'll tell you. So, yeah, it was just such an interesting
mm,
evening. And I say you and I sort of nattered quite a
mm.
bit. Although I think most of the time we were both sat there in stunned silence, just listening to everyone else and thinking,
Oh,
what
I
do
mean, as I
what
say,
do
it was
I say?
fascinating.
I want to say
Yeah,
something to show I can speak, but I actually don't know what to say without sounding really thick.
yep, yep. I mean, they were brilliant. As I say, that they were talking about the vehicles and the restoring, and when Woody
Yeah,
was talking about Normandy and all the rest of it, and I just went, I don't know what to say. I'm going to sound like an idiot.
yeah,
You guys are amazing, and I say I was hanging on all of their words.
yeah. Me
Um,
too.
yeah,
Me too. I just kept trying to throw in the odd ghost
and they
story
were all
there.
lovely.
Yeah, they are. They are
Yeah,
genuinely amazing people, all worth
yeah,
people following. And this is what I love about the people I've got to know in the sort of 6, 7 years I've been doing this. I've got to know people who are telly stars, both in the paranormal and
mm,
history, but also people who aren't, who are behind the scenes, like working their backsides off. And
mm.
everyone is so fascinating. And you and I were talking about this before we came on air, that the amazing thing about history is you can never know it all. There's
No,
no possible way. And
no,
every person you meet, no matter what their background is, I mean, I'm not academic. I'm not university. Yeah, I told you something you didn't know. You've told me
of
stuff I
course.
didn't know. And I think that is what's so amazing about this, is that you can
Mm,
learn so much just by opening your ears.
I love it. And as you say, you're absolutely right. The more that you learn, the more you realize you don't know. So when I'm talking about RAF Bomber Command and such like, I've got a good grasp of it. And then I'll chat to someone and go, gosh, I really need to jump down that
Mm,
line. I don't know anything about it. That happens all the time.
yeah,
Um, and I love it.
yeah.
It's just gift that keeps on giving, doesn't it? History. It's just
Well,
so
how
fascinating.
often do your students tell you something that you thought, oh, I'd never thought of
Oh
it
my
like
goodness, all the time. The thing I love is, and I think it's a little bit of a refresh, is the questions they ask.
that. Mm,
Because you're so embedded in kind of like, okay, this is this, and I'm teaching this and such like, and then I can't even think of examples, but they'll ask a question, and go, I never thought about it from that perspective. So
yeah.
it's so refreshing. And when it comes to essays, when they go on their so one module I'm teaching at the moment, Essex, they're on independent projects, and they can pick whatever they want,
Mm,
and I absolutely love it. So you've got things looking at the historical impact of historical influence on the Zelda games, which I'm all ears for because I'm going, oh, wow, I never thought about that. This whole fantasy world is built on something, it's built on the past.
hmm.
And she was explaining all of this and the imagery, and oh, it channels into uh, popular perceptions of medieval times. I'm just like, this is brilliant. I'm
Yeah,
learning so much. And yeah, they're all like that. I'm learning all the time.
yeah,
I'm there and marking and all the rest of it. And there are things obviously that I can tick that they're going, yeah, that this approach is good and they're thinking of this and everything. But I'm learning all the time. There was another one last year actually that was looking at uh, medieval. I'll go back to medieval, aren't I? Because I'm reading a book about it. I was looking at the impact of cathedrals,
all right.
and I'd never really thought about that before. And the fact that they took dozens and dozens of years to build, that
Yeah,
it was a form of employment, it was a form
yeah,
of unity and such like. And yeah, he wrote an absolutely incredible essay about cathedrals and the social impact. I went, never thought about that before. They're just these big things that happen to be in Lincoln and London and all the rest of it.
yeah.
Um, yeah.
It's
So yeah, absolutely learning all the time.
no, I always say to people, there's history in everything. What we
Mm.
talked about 20 minutes ago technically is now history.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
you never stop learning. Now, obviously your specialism is bomber command, is World War II bomber command. That's what
yeah.
we know you for. But you and I, again, before we came on air, we were talking about some of the films and how,
Mm,
like the war films, how they'd changed from the 40s onwards,
mm,
but also how a lot of them are in our memories, but
mm,
we may not realize it. And the subject we're going to be talking about in today's episode is really to do with sort of superstitions and rituals and things that bomber crews, specifically bomber crews,
mm.
would have gone through. Now, the reason I choose bomber crews is everyone who knows me knows I'm a Guy Gibson groupie. They know that I kind of, if I'm near a Lancaster bomber, I start crying and I have to kiss it and everything else. And they know that about me. They also know that my second favorite aircraft is also a bomber, albeit a smaller one, is the Mosquito. That I am
Wonderful
pro,
aircraft. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
I am. If we're talking about other countries, I am pro B-24 Liberators. I sing the Liberator song over the Flying Fortress. You know, people know who know me know that about me. Um, I haven't got your depth of knowledge on it all, but they know that I'm passionate about it and I'm always wanting to learn. And one of the things I thought about is superstitions and
Mm,
sort of things that crews wanted to go through. Now, we were talking about one of my favorite war films, which was Appointment in London.
mm.
And you mentioned that your favorite scene is in Appointment in London, your favorite bit, the Wren.
The Philharmonica. Oh, the Wren.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I absolutely find it brilliant because there's this build up of, oh, there's going to be this really boring intelligence officer that's going to bore us to death telling us about what we need to do. And in the meantime, Bogard and a couple of the others run into this woman that's car's broken down and they bump into her and they all kind of fancy her and the Americans obviously pulling his charm and everything.
She was a bit of a
And they
bait.
think
She was a bit of a blonde bait.
she was, yeah,
Yeah.
she's gorgeous, yeah.
Mm.
But then they think nothing of it and they go to this briefing and it's her in full Wren uniform,
Hmm.
um, giving the intelligence report, and they're
Yep.
all absolutely dumbstruck. I love that scene because it's just so like, yeah.
And then I mentioned, because we were talking about more modern films, that maybe that's where they got the idea in Top Gun for the
Mm,
Kelly McGillis scene,
mm,
that you've got Tom Cruise chatting up this very attractive blonde in a
mm.
bar, and then she's the
Yeah,
civilian contractor who's going to explain how the aircraft work
yeah.
later on. So there's so many of these kind of parallels that you can spot. And like you say, comparing things to other things and everything else. But one of the reasons I chose Appointment in London is that factors into one of the first real kind of superstitions, but also uh, the fact that maybe there was a youthful sense of immortality with
Yeah.
these crews. That, you know, we take a Lancaster, they had what, 9 crew on board, 8 crew, nine
Mm,
crew on average. What was the rough statistic of how likely you were to complete, sorry, your 30 missions, which was an average
mm,
tour for a bomber
mm.
crew on a Lancaster in World War II?
I
What
mean,
was
the
the
first thing
likelihood?
to say is, yeah, we specifically highlighted Lancasters. Other aircraft are available, and also that changes throughout the war. So it really does depend what aircraft you're flying at
I
what
can tell
time.
you're a lecturer. I can tell you.
I'm already sending people to sleep. No.
Already, in general, I'm talking about the big bombers
Yeah,
here. So, all right,
yeah, yeah,
Halifax, Wellingtons,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Lancasters,
Mm,
those
mm.
bigger, long range, heavy bombers. Is that
Mm.
better? Is that a better way of describing it? Does that make you happy, Teach?
That's fine. That's fine. That's fine. Yeah. Again, it depends. If you're flying in the Battle of Berlin, you're flying further into
Hmm.
enemy territory, into a very, very well defended area.
Yeah.
At that point, the Luftwaffe, the German defences, are absolutely deadly. They're ahead of, they've cottoned on to a lot of the RAF systems and such like. Yeah, your rate of survival isn't great.
Mm.
If you're flying, and I hate the term, a milk run to France in daylight, escorted by lots of lovely Spitfires, in the summer of 44, you've got a higher rate of survival.
And other fighter aircraft are available.
Other fighter aircraft are, of course, available. That
Two
determines it.
can
There's
play at that
also
game. Two can play at that game.
there's also a factor actually that when it comes to completing a tour, which changed throughout the war, the number of missions that were needed, and also what qualified as a full mission.
Yeah.
At the start of the tour, you are inexperienced, you're nervous, there's a high loss rate. But there's also a higher loss rate at the end of the tour.
Mm.
Now, this is where the superstition comes in. Oh, I've nearly made it. Oh my goodness, my number must surely be up. There's
Yeah.
nerves. There's
Yeah.
a sense of realism of I might get home now. So you stop being, I don't know, that extra bit cautious, or
Yeah.
you might be that extra bit bold, wanting to get it over and done with. Um, so that's a factor as well when it comes to loss rate, where
Mm.
you are in your tour, as well as where you are, what you're
Wow.
flying.
Okay.
So there's many things to consider. It wasn't easy
Mm.
by any means.
Yeah.
And the loss rates, I mean, the deemed acceptable loss rate is less than 5%.
Right.
Anything higher than that is not sustainable. Certainly 10% onwards is not sustainable. So when you have raids where there's a high loss rate, and
Mm.
that's the other thing is when you're looking at statistics and you go X amount of bombers were shot down. So recently we had the anniversary of Nuremberg,
Hmm.
which is the 95 bombers plus plenty of others that were written off afterwards were shot down. You go 95 bombers, wow, that's incredible. And then when you times that by how many crew were on board,
Mm.
and in the space of about an hour and a half, more RAF personnel were lost. The whole of Fighter Command lost during the Battle of Britain, which lasted from July to October officially.
Hmm.
Although I've got discrepancies and the arguments against that date. Anyway, uh, I've got to be me, haven't I, at the end of the day? It's shocking, isn't it? It
Yeah.
really is. But that's the thing is, we see a bomber going down, and yeah, there are X amount of people on it, depending on the type and such
Yeah.
like.
I mean, I've done talks on this is obviously US Air Force bombers, but Castle Raid, because
Mm.
the Castle Raid, the 445th Group went out of RAF Tibenham, which is my old airfield, which is where I used to fly gliders from, and my dad still flies
Oh
gliders
wow!
from. I've done investigations there. I did talks on the castle mission, the castle raid,
Mm.
and it's one of the things I say there that they had, I think it was 35 aircraft took off. Yeah, there was supposed to be, I think there was supposed to be like 36 or 30, I can't remember the figures now, but there was
Mm.
meant to be 30, all of them were going, 35, 36.
Mm.
Couple turned back because they had engine failure, so didn't make it. I think only something like 4 aircraft returned. All the
Gosh.
others were lost. And when you say that's an average of 10 people on
Oh
each
no, if it
aircraft,
B-17 Liberator, yeah, 9, 10. So what's that,
B-24, it was
300?
10, but the B-24s were 10 because
Wow.
they were still using belly gunners at that
Mm.
point.
Mm.
It was when they stopped using belly gunners, but some of them actually had 11 or 12 on because they had extra bigwigs
Mm.
flying
Mm.
with them and they had additional radar operators and all that. But
Mm.
when you look at that level of destruction just in one mission, and I think that was the
Mm.
worst US Air Force loss of the whole war, what they went
Gosh.
through. Um, and it's still, was it down to lead pilot navigational error or was it deliberate because they ended
Mm.
up bombing a railroad? But you kind of you look at this, and this is why I try and stress to people that you see a bomber going down, a big bomber. We're talking heavy bombers here. I'm
Mm.
not talking about the mosquitoes and stuff. I'm talking about the heavy. I am talking about the heavy, big
Mm.
jobs. Um, what people don't factor in is how many lives are on that aircraft.
Mm.
There's a lot of men, and not being sexist, they were men. There's a lot of men
Mm.
on that aircraft. So did a lot of them have that youthful sense of immortality? Because so many of them
Mm.
were, I mean, this is, you must see this when you read reports and you look at the average age of what a lot
Mm.
of those crews were, and it's like they're not even out of nappies. They're so young. Do you know what I mean? And
Well, I look at what I was like let's face it, they were 18, the
mm,
youngest. Pilots were usually slightly older because they needed a little bit more training. But yeah, 18, 19, 20.
mm,
And this is an incredible thing. So you mentioned Guy Gibson earlier. He was 26 at the time of the Dams raid. He was
yeah,
considered an old man. And when I went to uni, I was 21 with a bunch of
mm,
18, and they mocked me as the old man.
mhm, yeah,
And
yeah,
I can't imagine doing what they did at 21, let alone 18. And yeah, they say that they're barely out of nappies. I haven't
yeah,
learned hardly anything about
yeah,
myself or the world. And yeah, but I guess the flip side of that is they're not going to have that sense of fear and responsibility that I have now.
yeah.
Um, yeah,
And it's
as
not
far as
having the
us,
fear. It's not having the fear that enabled them
absolutely, yeah,
to
yeah,
do it. Yeah. And I
yeah,
think that was the reason. I mean, that's what I mean by this. It's like you see it when you see young lads driving a motorbike and they're riding it like a
mm,
complete, and you're thinking you're going to be dead if you carry on riding like that. Somehow
yeah,
they're not. But you know
yeah,
full well at 40, you wouldn't ride it the same way
no,
because A, you don't bounce so easily, and B, you start thinking, well, actually, life isn't, I'm not
mm,
immortal. But I do wonder if that's the they were so young, they may not have had the talent of some of the more experienced pilots who say were transporting
mm,
for the ATA, for example, but
yes,
they
mm,
maybe wouldn't have got so scared when they had like Messerschmitt 109s with super
mm,
armor and cannons and everything else charging after them. They would have just dealt with the situation
mm,
because, hey ho, it's not going to happen to me. Or did they think, hey ho, it might happen? I mean, what sort of things? I read one case that I mean, you've got the thing of always eating the same meal before you
yeah,
fly. That's logical because if you know it's not going to give you a dodgy stomach, you're going to
absolutely,
stick with it. I read another one that some of them would leave half their food so they had
mm,
something to come back to.
mm.
Had you heard that one before?
I had actually, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, that's
But
kind of,
there'd also be a little bit of the term gallows humor with it.
yeah.
So it'd be kind of like, and I think this is in the Dam Busters film. The mess bill would arrive, and you go, "Oh, I'll pay that when I come back from the raid,"
Hmm.
because you don't want to pay it in case you don't come back and you've wasted all that money. There's just this weird joke,
Mm,
and gallows humor would be a way of getting through it.
mm,
Um, I can't think of the example, but you've got things where they're asking for crews to come forward, and they're told X amount of you won't come back,
mm,
and someone's just joked, "Oh, I feel sorry for you guys,"
mm,
looking at them, because that's the thing is there is this sense of, yeah, the more you survive, and perhaps there is this youthful thing of, yeah, I'll get back. It won't happen to me. It happened to the other
Mm,
fella. It won't happen to
mm,
me. Which you hear a lot of,
yeah,
actually.
yeah. I mean, the sort of the food thing, the fact that always follow the same routines.
Oh, absolutely.
Um, I mean, the other one that I thought was quite interesting was the whole sort of some crews were luckier than others. So you almost
Mm,
wanted to. I know Jimmy Stewart, James Stewart, he was seen to be a
mm,
very lucky pilot. People wanted to fly with him when he was flying the Liberators because he
mm,
always brought these crews back. You know, even when the aircraft had been shot up to shit, he always managed to get it back. But
mm.
he was slightly older. He was in his
He
late
was,
30s,
yeah.
late 30s, I think. So he was classed as an old man. But
Mm,
he was an incredibly talented pilot. Yet
yeah.
but there was also the opposite that you didn't, if you were, say, I think I was reading this in that the Jack Curry book you mentioned,
Mm,
that one of his crew, I want to say it was his navigator, but it might have been his bomb aimer, I can't remember. He
mm,
developed appendicitis and he begged Jack not to replace him because he didn't want to have to
yeah.
step into a new crew. He felt safe.
But yeah, there's a massive superstition when it comes to crew replacements. And it
Mm,
would happen. You don't think about that. Yeah, someone gets ill, they've got the flu or appendicitis or
mm,
whatever. You'd need someone to replace it. And that was seen as bad luck. Oh gosh, you got someone here that we don't know. Even though
mm,
they'd gone through the same training or whatever, you wanted your full crew. There's
mm.
also, I think, linked to you want that particular aircraft as well.
Yeah, that was
Oh,
another one. Yeah.
you know, it's not the best of Lancs, but it keeps bringing me back. Well, it's brought me
Mm,
back for 10 missions. And if that was out of service, and actually, yeah, this is something mentioned in Appointment in London, the film Appointment in London. There would be a massive hang up if you couldn't get that particular
mm,
aircraft
mm.
or someone else was flying it or something. Yeah, it's
It was your aircraft. It was your lucky aircraft. You knew its little
yeah,
foibles. You knew you knew that it kinked to the right slightly when you took off and
yeah,
things like that. Yeah. I mean, I do know from the work I've done on Tibenham with the Liberators, there were certain ones that crews did not want to be given because it was
yeah,
deemed cursed,
yeah,
for want of a better term, that it never made a successful mission, or the
mm,
engine always blew out, or
mm,
whatever it was. And I know that was the same with some of the other
mm, mm,
bombers, the British bombers. And what was this? I mean, we were also talking about things like lacking moral fiber, LMF. Someone had gone
mm,
LMF, lacking moral fiber, and all of this. Do you think this belief in curses, superstitions, and everything was a way of them trying to counter that potential mental break of
mm,
being? How do you think it helped stop something? Because I mean, all right, if you were done as lacking moral fiber, that meant you were out, you weren't flying
mm,
anymore, you were
mm,
safe, for want of a better word. But the shame of knowing that you'd lost your wings and
mm,
or whatever your job was,
mm.
how do you think maybe the superstitions help them battle that? Do you get what I'm asking?
No, no, absolutely. I think that it definitely did, and I think that sometimes superstitions came about just because it worked. So a film I absolutely love is The Way to the Stars, which talks
Okay.
about British and American crews, and one of the pilots has a lucky lighter
Right.
that doesn't work, and he's
Okay.
taken it on every mission, and of course the mission where he doesn't take it, he doesn't come back. Spoilers, sorry,
Mm.
folks. And it does play into things. You Memphis Belle, they talk about there's a lucky rubber band, and someone else has got St. Christopher.
Yeah.
I think yeah, it's very very prevalent in getting through things and or getting through the missions. And yeah, if you do something, I mean, you've got the accounts of which is, for some reason was quite a widespread thing was tail gunners urinating by
Mm.
the tail wheel as a sign of good luck. Yeah. Um, there's some argument that it didn't happen as much as it's touted, but it clearly comes from somewhere, and I believe it did happen. Where did that come from? Surely that came from the first mission where the tail gunner went, "Oh, I really need a pee. I'm just going to relieve myself," and then went, "Oh, we came back. Maybe I need to keep doing that." And
That
maybe that was the one thing that made a difference.
that thesis you sent me, that
Oh
you sent
yeah.
me to read, I think it
Oh,
talked
I can't
about it
remember who
in
wrote it.
um I can't remember who wrote it now either. But
Oh, SB Mackenzie, yeah, yeah.
That's it. They mention it in there, and then I found
Mm,
some more about that, and it was they think it started as a because the crews knew they were going to have 5 or 6 hours in the
mm,
air, that they would relieve themselves before flying.
yeah.
But they didn't want to relieve themselves at the side of the runway because then the WAFs would see
Oh
them.
gosh, yeah, yeah,
So they did it under the aircraft because obviously these bombers are, whether we're talking Wimpeys, whether we're talking Halifaxes, whether we're talking Lancs, they're quite big
mm,
and they couldn't be seen. But then it got stopped because it was corrosive to
yes,
the
yes,
the wheel.
yeah.
But then there was a story, I think it was like a group captain was coming up with one of them, were going up with one of the crews or something that I read, and he did it. And they were like, and he said, well, you got to do this for luck.
Mm,
Another one was, I think, spitting on the rudder as well.
yeah,
That
yeah. That's the other one.
if one of the crew hadn't done that, and there's a story of the crew hadn't done it, so the gunner had to get out as they're taxiing, spit on the rudder, and then run after the aeroplane and be hauled up through one of the
Wow.
doors. We can't remember which type of bomber it was, but things like that that were so essential. Now, there is obviously an element, it's not paranormal or anything. It is
Mm,
psychological that if you believe you've followed all the normal procedures
mm,
to keep yourself safe. But I mean, we're talking appointment in London. Obviously, it's not a true story, but it will have come from the time it was written. People would have used
mm,
their own memories. People wanted to fly with Dirk Bogart's character because he was seen as being lucky because
yeah, yeah,
he'd had so many successful as in he'd come home. He always
yeah,
brought his crew home.
yeah,
Um, so whilst it might have been unlucky to have some crew changes, some crew members were seen to be lucky because they always made it. But
yeah.
could it not be then? I would have almost looked at it the opposite way, that maybe they were jinxed, that they made it, but nobody else on their crew did. I don't know if I'd want to
There's
fly with them.
definitely, yeah, there's definitely survivor's guilt.
Mm,
And this is prevalent with people volunteering to go on a second tour and such like because they feel terrible that
mm,
they're back home or they're training and such like that they'll put their name in even though they name the odds and they might not come back.
mm,
The fact that and this isn't just for the Air Force either. Um, and I mean we're digressing slightly, but when it comes to survivors' memoirs and
mm.
recounts of events, there is this sense of they're the heroes, the ones that are still buried over there.
Yeah.
Well, you went through it too. I always kind of like think, but there is still this kind of like, no, which is fair enough. I mean, I can't even begin to really go into the feelings and such like that they're
Mm.
going through. But yeah, this guilt of surviving is very, very prevalent
Yeah, I know I read
with
about
people
it.
that
Some of the
survive.
survivors from Castle, one of the ones who managed to get his aircraft back to the UK, I think he crashed at Manston, RAF Manston. He felt guilty that his mates
Yeah.
hadn't made it, and it took him a while before he
Yeah.
was able to get the confidence to fly again because
Mm,
he felt so bad. He was like, I'd not done my job properly because
mm,
otherwise I should have gone as well. But it is fascinating. I mean, it does make me wonder. I mean, some of the ones I read, the fact that Commonwealth flyers always had something related to their country with them,
mm,
whether it was like if you're Australian, you might take a boomerang, or if you're Canadian, you might take a
mm,
maple leaf and
mm,
all this. And it just it's not paranormal, it's psychological.
mm.
But it's fascinating to think that with all that technology around them, something as inconsequential as whether they had the little cuddly toy their wife had given them before
Yeah.
they were deployed.
We'd have things like girlfriend Snickers as a
Yeah,
lucky charm.
yeah.
It could
Well,
it could be anything. You know.
but funnily enough, the ATA women, when they were transporting these aircraft, and some of them were pretty dodgy, they didn't take talismans with them.
Mm,
Which is I always find quite interesting that
mm,
women are seen to be the sort of weaker, and whether we need the talismans
mm,
as well, who knows? Who knows?
mm,
Another
mm,
one I found that I really liked was that photographing a crew before a mission
mm,
was bad luck.
mm,
They didn't like
mm.
doing it.
Yeah.
And how many photos of crews do you see? It would be interesting to see how many of those crews actually made it back. Or
Oh
whether
gosh, yeah, I don't thought of that.
did you
But that
see
is quite
loads of crew
incredible.
crew photos in front of their aircraft? At what point was that
Yeah.
taken? Was it just before the mission? I mean, with Guy Gibson losing his dog just before.
Oh yeah, that's why he doesn't tell the rest of the squadron because that's going to be a massive
Yeah.
downer and a sign of bad luck.
Yeah.
So it's quietly, can you bury him at the end of the runway when we're over and not tell anybody?
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, the superstition is very, very real. Another thing I want to talk about actually is chop girls.
Okay.
So these are usually members of the Women's Auxiliary Air Force that might have dated, I don't know, air gunner or air crew. They
Yeah.
didn't come back. And then they might have dated somebody else and they didn't come back. And it was seen as, right, they're bad luck. Don't date that girl. You don't come back if you date them. And they would be pushed aside and they would be, yeah,
Would they be removed from the
humiliated.
airfield? Would they be removed from the airfield? Would the
I
group
mean,
captain sort of say, no,
eventually, yeah.
they really are bad juju for my crews. I don't want them
I,
around just in
I
case.
mean, I don't know specifically for that reason, but air crew and ground staff stuff did move around.
Mm,
You know, they were given different. I'm not aware of them being deliberately moved because they're seen as a chop girl, but
mm,
they were shunned aside, and you know, the whispers go around the squadron quite quickly of, yeah, she's very pretty, but she dated someone who didn't come back after. Yeah, it would just spread like wildfire.
mm,
So that adds to the superstition
mm,
of sort of just, and it's going to weigh on your mind, isn't it?
mm.
You'll
Yeah.
do anything to make sure you come back, but
Well,
to ostracize these women is kind of cruel. But you can see where it came from, if that's fair to say that.
well, you were living on a knife edge the whole time. I
Yeah,
mean, the I can't remember what was the average tour of a bomber crew on average, wasn't it? So something like ridiculous, like 2 or 3 weeks or something absolutely stupidly small. The average.
again, it changed throughout the war.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying the average. Like, you know, it was depending on, like you say, depending on the mission, whether it was a safe-ish run that they were doing, whether it was actually
Mm,
straight into flak and heavy fighters, and
mm,
it really, yeah, it did depend. But I'm sure I read somewhere it was something ridiculous, like if you survived more than 3 weeks in a bomber crew, any of the bomber crews, you were lucky. Um,
There was a thing actually in Masters of the Air where I can't remember what the number was now, but if you get past 10 missions or something,
mm,
you you've got a good chance. So that was at that point 25 missions for a
yeah,
tour. So 10 missions, yeah, you survive that. Yeah,
mm,
you can start thinking, okay, that's above the average. Most
yeah,
people are killed. And that goes with what I'm saying is that it was the crews right at the start that generally got shot down. Same with fighter crews as well.
mm.
The inexperienced ones, yeah,
Well, that's what Jack Curry says
obviously.
in that book, isn't it? Lancaster Target, when he goes to
Mm,
Wickenby,
yeah.
he's told by some of the more experienced crews, you'll be gone in a 2 weeks because the new crews never make it.
And that's the other thing is, yeah, you wouldn't really make friends with the new crew.
Yeah.
You wouldn't want to get attached because you realise the odds were they weren't coming back. So you'd be a tight knit group within your crew, which you mentioned
Mm,
earlier. If you had a replacement, it was oof, bad luck and
mm,
everything. But when it comes to other crews, yeah, they're a little bit of distance. And the same goes
mm.
with fighter pilots.
All right.
As I say, you know, the new boys, so to speak, you didn't really make friends with because you thought, well, they're going to be gone soon.
So they didn't have almost like a mentoring system then for the more
No,
novice. Really? Well, that
yeah.
must have
I
been a
mean,
very,
yeah,
very lonely existence for new pilots and new
yeah.
crew. It must have been a very that you couldn't even go to the Dirk Bogard of the squadron, so to speak,
Mm,
and say, what have you done to get this far? What tips can you give me? What advice can you give me? They couldn't
mm.
even do that.
No,
That's very lonely. Very
it's
lonely.
horrible. But the thing is, when you think about the turnaround,
Mm,
the amount of people coming up, and I mean, the responsibility as well, and
mm.
this weighs, and this is something I actually dealt with in appointment in London. We're really plugging that, aren't we? Quite rightly, we really, really should.
It's just
Um,
uncanny it fits. So,
it does,
I
it
hadn't
does.
even planned that.
Well,
I this is all people will know me. I hadn't actually planned that to fit as well as it has done. It's just off the top of my head. So I'm quite pleased. I'm gonna have to watch it after this, I tell you.
I think
So,
I am as well,
yeah.
actually. But it deals with so much. It deals with
Mm,
loss. It deals with fear, accusations of cowardice. It's the Bomber Command film
mm.
for me. I also love Way to the Stars as well. But yeah,
Mm.
Much Time for a Appointment in London, which is loosely based off Leonard Cheshire's experiences.
Is it? What
Yeah,
Appointment in London is?
yeah, yeah.
Ah. See, I had to educate someone on who Leonard Cheshire was not so long ago. They didn't know. They didn't know who he was. And I said, "You've heard of the Cheshire Homes?" And they went, "Oh yeah,
Mm,
the Homes for the Disabled." I said, "Yeah, well, he started that. His wife was Sue Ryder, who's the I
yes.
think she was brain cancer, wasn't it? That was her thing." And they're like, "He was
Mm,
a pilot." And I went, yeah, yeah, he was wasn't he 617 at one? He was
he
six one
was.
seven at one
He was
point, wasn't he?
commander.
Yeah, that's what I
He's
thought.
CO,
Yeah,
commanding officer,
that's what I
six one
thought.
seven squad. Yeah,
But he always said he wasn't a natural pilot. He had to work really, really hard.
yeah.
And when you read his sort of notes compared to Gibson's notes, you can see what a completely different type of pilots they were. And it
Different
also
character,
might explain
absolutely.
why Gibson didn't come back and Cheshire
Mm,
did, because Cheshire was very, very cautious as a pilot.
mm.
Um, he did not
I
fly on instinct like Gibson did.
yeah. I'm saying this to a Gibson fangirl, so I do apologise in advance. She's looking at me, judging me already.
What are you about to
Um,
say about my man?
I think that he overshadows Cheshire, and I
Yes,
think it's a bit unfair.
I agree. I
Oh
agree.
wow, okay.
No, I agree. That's why I tell people who Leonard
I mean,
Cheshire
they're
is
both
was.
incredible. They're absolutely both incredible. But
Yeah,
I feel that the Gibson narrative is overshadowing. He's become the
poster boy.
main individual. Yeah, the poster boy. Absolutely, perfectly put. A bomber command, which I
Mm,
would have said 20, 30 years ago, Cheshire was more so talked
hmm.
about, and he's not so much now,
No,
which I don't understand really where that's come from. But yeah,
no, I
let's talk
do,
about
I do,
Cheshire.
I do make it my mission to tell people. But same with Jimmy Stewart. I make it my mission to tell
Oh
people
yeah,
what
yeah.
he did and what he wasn't just a token pilot. He flew bloody
Mm,
missions. He
mm,
put himself at risk on more sorties than are actually documented as well.
mm,
But it's just, but no, I was explaining to someone who Leonard Cheshire was, and they, and the fact that he also started the Cheshire Homes himself
mm,
because of wounded servicemen who
yeah.
couldn't go out in public because of how badly they
Well,
were disfigured.
he saw, and someone's going to correct me now, one of the atomic bombs being dropped. I can't remember if it was Hiroshima or
Oh,
Nagasaki.
did he?
He was there as an observer, and he
Ah,
completely changed his view on bombing as a consequence.
mm,
And that's when he went, I need to give to the world.
mm,
I've dropped bombs. I've been a part of this. I
mm,
need to change my outlook. And they're both absolutely incredible people, him and his wife,
mm,
Sue Ryder. Yeah, shout
mm,
out to her as well
definitely. But like I
and what
say,
they
no,
do.
I am a Gibson fangirl, but I do know he had his faults.
Mm,
And I do think that if he hadn't died so mysteriously and so
mm,
young,
mm,
he wouldn't be as well known as he is now.
no.
And I say that I just have always adored Guy Gibson ever since I was little,
Mm.
and it's never going to change. So, and also when I found out he was into older women, that was always,
Will they?
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. He liked older women. So yeah, I could have pulled Guy Gibson, I reckon. Gone for a
Sorry, I
joyride.
shouldn't laugh like that, should I?
No, no, sorry, it was meant to be a joke. But yeah, I could have gone for a joyride in a Lancaster. Could have got my flight in a Lancaster had I been around when Guy Gibson was
Wow,
around. But there you go. I don't know if I'd wanted to go up in a Mosquito with him. He had a few more flying hours in a Lanc than a
a
Mozzie.
lank.
But yeah, no, his
Well,
wife his wife was about 7, 8 years older than him.
oh, okay.
I think it was about 7, 8 years, maybe not that much, but he definitely he liked women, full stop. But he did seem to like older women. Mm,
I
yeah,
didn't know that about older women. I did not know that.
there you go. There you go. But no, it's always been a standing joke that I have a thing about Guy Gibson, but I do admire Leonard Cheshire. I do.
Mm,
Um, he was an incredibly well respected airman, and
mm.
yeah, but he was completely the polar opposite to Gibson. And
I think we do have favourites, don't we?
mm,
Just people that seem to speak. I mean, Jack Curry, as we mentioned earlier.
mm.
When I watched his documentary on the Augsburg raid, very young, I was hooked. I've watched his subsequent
Oh, was he in
documentaries
that
and read his
raid?
books.
Was he part of that
No, he
raid?
wasn't. No, he
Oh,
wasn't. He was a member of 44 Squadron that took part in
right.
the raid. He joined much later on when they were flying Avro Lincolns. Um, but he was a pilot during the war. He's a
Mm.
sergeant pilot, and he his way of storytelling
It's brilliant, isn't it?
is, isn't it? It's so
Yeah.
relatable, and you really So I really recommend folks watching the Augsburg raid documentary
Or
that
but
he
get hold
did.
of some
It's
of Jack Curry's books. You can get them
and his
on
books as
eight,
well.
eight,
Yeah,
eight
yeah,
books have got them. They, yeah, you can rent them from the
yeah.
library. In fact, I said I read Lancaster Target on Internet
Mm.
Archive. It had been copied from Chelmsford Library, would you believe?
Oh wow.
Which I thought was spooky. But
Yeah,
he's quite self-deprecating in the way he
he
writes.
is. Yeah.
But it's also, yeah, it's very storytelling, but with
Mm.
historical context. And yeah, I wish I could have met him. I wish I could have met him. I would
Oh,
have. He seemed like he would have been a very down to
same.
earth. Whereas some pilots you can meet can be quite up their own
Mm.
jacksies.
Yeah.
Um, he seemed to be very much. I'm one of the boys. I just happen to do a different job to what
Mm.
the boys do. That was my feeling from reading
Mm.
his descriptions. So, but so
What,
thank you
what,
for
what a,
introducing me to him because I hadn't heard of him before. So you've introduced me to Jack Curry, which I
well,
really.
this is the other thing. He did and I shared it on Twitter recently. Was he walked through a Lancaster and he talked about his own crew and where they were. And as a matter of fact, the rear gunner was the back of the aircraft and
Mhm.
had a really tough job and all the rest of it. But then he'll tell personal stories. So he gets up to the mid upper gunner, and he says, "Oh, it was a Welshman that during one mission asked to be, if he could leave his turret because he
Mhm.
needed to have a poo." Um, and he went, "Well, no, we're in the middle of Germany. You can't have a poo right now and use the toilet on board. You're gonna have to hold it in." And anyway, they were coming on the way back over the North Sea, and Jack Curry suddenly remembered this, and he went, mid up, yep, you can relieve yourself. He said, "Too late, skipper. It's rock solid in my pants right now." um, and I just thought, you don't get told those stories, and he's so
No.
told it so matter of factly, and he just. And one of the best questions I've ever had after a talk was someone saying, "Sorry, I don't know what we're talking about pool all the time." Was someone saying, "Hello, you went on a 9 hour flight, 10 hour flight potentially to Berlin. What
Yeah.
did you do if you needed to have a wee or a poo?" I was so taken aback, and I knew the answer, folks, but I was just like, yeah, they're the sort of questions that you really don't expect after giving this talk about
But
something,
but
but
they're
they're practical.
fact. They're
They
facts as
are,
well.
yeah,
What did you do? And I mean, my uncle used to fly Hercs, and so they'd do quite long
yeah,
hauls. And I said to him, "What do you need to do if you need the loo?" And he goes, "You have a tube." And I was like,
yeah,
"Really?" And
yeah.
yeah. Whereas I know on the Lancs they did have a toilet, didn't they? But they didn't
They
like
did,
using it
yeah.
because it
No,
froze and
yeah,
stunk.
yeah,
Where yeah, it's fact. It's
yeah,
I mean,
and, and it's
I love flying.
yeah,
I've never been ill
mm,
flying. I've flown a lot of different things, but I don't think I'd have wanted to be a navigator. Being stuck in that little cube, it must have been quite
really.
yeah, I would have thought that, no window, no. I would have been a
It's
pilot.
real.
I would have been a pilot. But
It's real gunner for me. I could never have
yeah.
done that. You're stuck in this absolutely tiny, cramped thing at the back of the aircraft with these two doors that swing
Yeah, but you're
open. You
quite
can't.
tall. You're quite tall. I'm
I am
only
quite
five
tall.
foot
Yeah,
two.
yeah. But you
The
can't
one
have your parachute in there.
True. The one I couldn't have done, bull turret. I couldn't have been a bull turret
Yeah,
gunner.
I'm far too tall to be bull turret.
But they didn't
Yeah,
always go on height for belly gunners. They could be any height. And
mm,
I have tried getting
yeah,
into what would have been a belly. And I say I'm 5 foot two. I'm quite bendy. I don't know how they did it. And also being a
mm,
pilot with a belly gunner, I would have been
mm.
terrified if I had to make a crash landing because that belly gunner's gonna, if they can't winch to get them up. Yeah.
This is an account I read a little while back. I can't remember where I read it, but the electricals had gone
Mm.
in the B7. It was a B-17, and the bull turret guy couldn't get out. The rest of the
Yep.
crew could, and they said, "But it's going to be a belly landing because the wheels, electronics have gone. The wheels
I
don't
think I
come
know
down."
I know the account you're talking
You know
about
the
now.
story, yeah. And the crew insist on staying with this
Mm.
bull turret gunner
Mhm.
who knows he's going to be crushed to death. They say,
Mhm.
"Hey, you bail out." It's like, "No, we're going to stay with you."
Mm.
Can you imagine that? I couldn't.
I can't imagine being the pilot with the responsibility of knowing I'm probably going to
Yeah,
kill half my crew. We can't
yeah,
get them out. I mean, I know that was one of the, but if we were talking about the ages, so say you've got a 23, 24-year-old pilot who has
mm,
got 9 lives they're responsible for.
mm,
9 lives. And it must have, it surprises me we don't hear more about mental breakdowns
Mm.
and stuff.
Well,
Um,
the really functioning crews, that there wouldn't be any sense of, certainly as the war progressed, there wouldn't be any sense of class snobbery or rank snobbery.
no.
So if a tail gunner went, I don't know, corkscrew left skipper, so an evasive
Mm,
maneuver, he would do it.
mm,
So that could be a sergeant talking to a wing commander. He would do it
mm,
because you trusted in him. He was doing his job,
hmm.
and I absolutely love that. That
Yeah,
they're all focused on
equal.
their own thing.
They're all equal.
Exactly.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, the only
I
a
just yeah.
comparison I can make is a rugby team, because even on a
Yeah,
on
yeah.
a rugby team, you've got the glamorous backs who tend to score all the tries, and everyone thinks that they're the ones everyone knows their names, and you got the forwards who do all the hard work, but there's still a respect for every single member of that team, because every
Mm,
single member of that
mm,
team has got an essential job, because if they didn't have an essential job, they wouldn't bloody
mm,
be there.
no,
And I always think it's the same when you get the big crews. But then again, even the respect to the grounds staff and everyone
mm,
else, everyone had, you'd never want to piss off your armorer, would you?
no,
Because um
no. This is the thing. If it worked, you had respect and you spoke
mm,
to those people. There was no sense of snobbery. It was
no,
just kind of like, I don't know, this spark plug isn't kind of working. It's like, I trust you to fix it.
yeah.
And that's the other thing is when aircraft didn't come back, the weight of responsibility on an armorer that might have gone, oh gosh, those guns were playing up. I wonder if that gun jammed and they couldn't
Or
fire and
the
they shot them
engineer
down or something.
or the mechanic on the
Yeah,
ground thinking maybe I didn't set the timing right on that prop,
exactly.
or
Yeah.
yeah. It must I think that's a lot of what people, they see the destruction, they see almost the glamour of being up in an aeroplane.
Mm,
They don't see the pain so much
no.
of the survivors. As you say, survivor's guilt. I mean, the mechanics knew they're never going up in the aircraft, but if their crew didn't come back, they've
Yeah.
lost it's yeah.
This is something else as well on a very, very morbid subject. Um, my supervisor, Lucy Noakes,
Hmm.
who is fantastic. That's the reason she's my supervisor. She's brilliant. Wrote about death in the Second World War, and she talks about death in the air and saying that it was often a very lonely experience. It was a very
Oh, I'd
quick
love to
experience
read
as well.
that. I would love
Oh
to
gosh, it's
read that.
brilliant.
Where can I read it?
Dying for the nation. Dying for the nation. It's called. I've got it from the library actually at the moment. I'm using it for my PhD.
Okay.
Um, but also the flip side of that, which I will add, is if you had a rear gunner that was shot to bits, and I mean, cannon fire is just ripping through a human body.
Hmm.
Let's not hold any punches here. It's horrific what it does. They land. The ground crew then have to clean out that turret for the next mission
Yeah.
that could be that night.
Yeah.
And there are descriptions of using hoses
Yeah.
and scattering what remains there are into a sack.
Hmm.
Can you imagine being a ground crew
Funnily
doing that? I
enough,
can't.
I can't remember who it was I was talking to about this not so long ago. We were talking about that because she asked me if it was true that they would be hosing down the aircraft when they'd been,
It is.
and I said yes, it is. I've
Yeah.
read accounts of it. But they weren't trained to deal with that kind of trauma,
No.
and it would have been bad enough knowing that you're on an aeroplane flying back with one of your friends in pieces. And that's not meant to
Mm,
sound funny, but in pieces.
absolutely.
The smell, they would have been smelling as well, because blood smells.
Mm-hmm.
And all you're thinking about is getting the rest of them back in one piece, in one
Mm.
piece. And knowing that as soon as you land,
That's
uh,
got to be dealt with.
that's got to be
Mm.
dealt with. I mean, I mean, I think we focus more on the trauma of the people who were being bombed than the people who were
Mm.
up in the air, because it's almost like, oh, well, that's all right. That was their choice. They went up in the air, they were safe, yada,
Mm.
yada, yada.
But so,
But
also on the ground. That's the thing. The trauma wasn't just to those that went out on every mission. It was the
mm,
ground crew. It was the families. And there was one
mm,
account actually that I read recently of a CO. I think he might have been finishing his last mission. I think it was 207 Squadron. I can't remember. Someone's going to correct me. And because it was the last mission, his family and watchers had come to the airfield and he'd been badly shot up. So this was a daylight raid on Brest, I think it was. Sorry, my memory is rubbish. And the aircraft came into land, didn't quite manage it, went up for a second landing, and it couldn't handle it. It was shot up to bits,
Mm,
stalled, crashed into a fireball. Everybody was, there were
right.
no remains found.
Mm,
His wife was watching that,
mm,
as were other aircrew, people on
mm.
the ground.
Yeah,
I mean,
I've read accounts of things like that, an aircraft blowing up.
yeah,
It was the bomb. It didn't. Yeah, there was. I can't remember where it was. It was one of the American air base, like in East Anglia, that they overloaded it with bombs, and the
yeah,
pilot said, "We ain't going to take off," and they said, "No, you will. You can. We checked. You can,"
mm,
and it didn't. And he he couldn't get the height because of the weight, and it
mm.
crashed and blew up. And that some of the support crew were running out to it to try and see if they could get anyone off it, and they were being held back because it's like they're dead.
Mm,
And for people to, it's almost like, well, at least if they'd released their bombs over the evil Germans, that's a,
mm,
you know, they've made a sacrifice, but to not even get that
mm,
far, um, yeah, I think, the whole war is never going to be fun. It's never going to be
no,
fun. And I do get quite annoyed at the lack of respect the bomber command
mm,
got. And as you and I intimated beforehand, I think Churchill is to thank for a lot of that.
yes, yes.
Um,
But
but
this is the thing that when criticism is thrown around, you cannot put it on the individuals that went into a
God,
bomber
no,
at 19 years old
no.
doing the thing that was going to end the war because, yeah, the questions go higher up. And I think I'm probably going to lose a bunch of followers over this. Churchill is one of the
It's all right, I said it
people to
first.
have criticism over. Well, you
I
did.
said it
I
first.
blame you. I blame you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
blame me. It's fine.
Um,
I'm a big girl. I get blamed for a lot of things. No,
but yeah,
I do.
if
I
you've
think
got criticism,
Churchill is to blame for the negative portrayal. The fact
mm,
that for years after the war, people who were part of Bomber Command couldn't tell people what they
yeah,
did because of fear of reprisals is just, so you could have told someone you'd executed a German spy and people would have gone, well done. But that you'd
mm,
gone up in a bomber, I
mm.
I don't get it. I don't get it. I really don't
So
get it.
also the nature of of the modern sense of war. You drop your bombs, you're told, yeah, that's a target.
Mm,
It's producing weapons or whatever. It's a factory. You don't know. You drop your bombs. You make the photograph. You come back. You don't know where they've gone.
mm,
So also having that sort of weighing on you. Where did my bombs actually land? No, no, it's bang on. Navigator knows what they're doing and
mm.
all the rest of it.
Pathfinders went in
Did
first, yada yada yada. Yeah.
pathfinders, etc. Yeah, yeah. There's just it's a subject that I just really can't get my head fully around. The more I study
Mm,
it, the more you realise there is to think about. And yeah, absolutely, the shunning after the war, I think, is absolutely shameful.
mm,
And yeah, I mean that's subsequent governments as well that have
mm,
come afterwards with Churchill initially, and then yeah, I mean Attlee's Labour didn't do anything afterwards,
no.
immediately after the war. Um, and this is something I said recently is I think that 55,000
Mhm.
out of 125,000, that's not including prisoners of war, psychological damage, wounded, etc.
Yeah.
That's a hell of a sacrifice. And these
Yep.
are people that have been trained, especially for that job, that are the peak of fitness, and
Hmm.
it's a tough process to be an aircrew. Not anybody can just sign up and do it. In many ways, I think it's Britain's war. It's from day one up until the end of it.
Mm,
Um, there's a steep learning curve. The amount of technology and money that goes into it is
hmm.
massive. For a large period of the war, it is Britain's main way of hitting back.
Hmm.
So to absolutely shun it, I yeah, I can't agree with.
No. Well,
Absolutely have those.
you and I are on the same page on this one, aren't we?
Yeah.
Because I do want to know though, is why did they chalk messages on the bombs?
Again, I think
Because
that was
you
just
ain't
a
going to get to read the message because hopefully the bomb's gone off. So,
I think it's a psychological thing. I think there's an element of propaganda as well. So you have the chalk messages in newsreels and photographs saying, "Here's a special one for adults" or something. But no, that's a rubbish
Mm,
example. But there were better ones that were written. But I also think there was a sense of, people, this is for so and so as well, or
mm.
this is for Coventry being bombed or whatever.
Yeah,
It would be that psychological kind of, gearing up to, I'm going to drop this bomb because of what happened to Sally or something,
yeah.
So that's just what I think it is, as well as the
Okay.
propaganda element.
Well, what
Um,
I would love, because you and I didn't know of any specific stories on this, but if anyone listening to this podcast knows of a story where a flight member, a member of the flight crew of a bomber, had a premonition not to fly and it saved their life or didn't, as the case may be, I would
mm,
love to hear about it, like a premonition, because I've read a lot about World War One premonitions of people who
yeah,
said, I need to move now, and have moved, and
mm.
like a bomb has hit where they were in their trench. I'd love to know if there's any similar in flying, in aviation in World War Two, because I've never found any, and I'm sure there must be, because
There was,
that would be a really interesting thing to look into. Um,
mm,
I mean, the other thing as well is we don't get many haunted World War Two British aircraft stories. We get a lot about American aircraft. We don't have as
mm,
many as British. Now, I know there was a story not so long ago that supposedly a Lancaster was seen flying around. I think it was over Hull, Derbyshire and Hull. And the RAF said, no, it's not one of ours. It's not one of ours. Well, they think it actually potentially was a Hercules that was misidentified,
mm.
but we don't know for sure. But when you think of the, as you said, 55,000 souls, why do we not get more ghost stories about the bombers?
Mm.
I just find it fascinating. Is it that it's happening and people kind of don't want to mention it? Or because a
Mm.
lot of the old
But
airfields I've been on are, and whether you believe in ghosts or not, are quite honestly haunted to buggery. Which I understand because the amount of loss any airfield would have seen loss. But it's interesting we don't get more ghost stories about British bombers or any of the bombers. I'm not just talking about my favourite one. I'm talking any of them because I don't want to be
The
told.
Bristol
I don't want
Glider,
to
of
be
course.
told off by you or Jane about favouritism,
They're out
Because I
there.
know
The
Jane is a
ghost.
wimpy, isn't she? Jane's
Oh no,
Wellington.
she's Halifax.
Oh, she's Halifax, is she? Oh, I thought she was
Yeah,
wimpy.
I know.
Oh,
I do
okay.
like the Wimpy actually. I've got a soft spot for the Wimpy. Um, no, the ghost stories are definitely there. And to plug Jack Curry again, he wrote a book about that.
Did
Yeah, yeah.
which one?
I can't think what it's called.
You'll have to let
I'm
me know.
sure that
You'll have to
I'll
let
let
me
you know.
know.
You've also got things like the Christmas story, The Shepherd, that was recently made into a film, Disney Plus.
Don't know that
So
one.
it's where, spoilers, folks, it's set in the 1950s, and a ghostly mosquito comes and saves the lost pilot, flies her back to base at Christmas. It's the Christmas miracle. So
Ooh.
yeah, and it's an incredible book actually. I've not watched the Disney Plus version. I'm supposed to, but I haven't got
What's it
around to it
called? The
yet. But I've
Shepherd.
got to. The Shepherd, yeah, yeah. But yeah, the interesting thing is, I want to remind something about premonitions. It it did happen.
Mm.
People were, I'm not going to make it back, and it wouldn't happen. Others will
But
go,
how much of that
I'm not
was
going to
their
make it.
psychological thing made them decide
Well,
they won't?
that's
Was it a
yeah.
premonition or was it God, I'm at 13 missions, 13's unlucky. That
Mm,
means, everything's gone
mm,
against me. I've forgotten my lucky talisman. I got a dodgy stomach this morning on my meal, or I couldn't have my normal meal because there was no eggs or whatever. And that
mm,
made them decide, no, it's all against me. It's not
mm,
going to happen. And maybe they weren't as
mm.
careful as they could have been, or
Absolutely.
yeah.
I think that definitely played into it. But what one thing that springs to mind was Mick Mannock in the First World War, who had a fear of being burnt to death.
Mm,
You know the story, don't you?
I think
And
I
of course
do.
that's and of course that's how he met his fate.
But he was an ace. He was an amazing
He
pilot.
was an
He
ace,
he coached younger
incredible.
pilots as well. And
Yeah.
some of one of, I think it's with him, wasn't it? That there's a did he actually genuinely have just an accident flying or shot down, or he deliberately
mm,
was shot down, if that makes sense, because he had been suffering quite badly with
mm.
depression. A lot of his close friends had just recently died. He
Yeah,
was
yeah.
living way above the odds of a World War One pilot, whose odds were even worse than a bomber. I nearly said
Mm.
Lancaster then. Bomber crew. I'm being very careful now because I don't want to get told off by a bomber crew. Their odds were even worse. World War One
Yeah.
pilots.
Mm,
But yeah, he was amazing. But yeah, I was more premonitions of if we go, we're not coming back, and then they don't go, and a
mm,
different aircraft doesn't. That sort of thing. Like I say, the World War One ones that fascinate me are stories about when someone's been dozing on in
mm,
a trench, and someone has woke their I don't know dead brother has woken them up and said you must move now, and they've woken up, moved, and 2 seconds later a shell has hit exactly where they
yeah.
were. Those kind of ones, they're the ones that fascinate me because is it communication from a different
Mm,
um realm, or
mm,
is it their sixth sense? Is it's and I know to be in aeroplanes you do have to have a sixth sense because you have to kind of know
mm.
what the aeroplane's going to do before it does it, so you
It,
can
it's instinct to survive as well.
hmm,
Whether
yeah,
you evade a fighter or flak or whatever,
hmm,
there's a sense of instinct, and this is the really major factor is you could be I don't know a crew that survived. You could have survived 2 tours
hmm,
and be revered and all the rest of it, but luck plays into it. Something
yeah,
doesn't quite work out. You bump into that fighter, that bit of flak happens to hit that part of the engine that sets
hmm,
it blazing on fire. How do you deal with that?
hmm,
And I think luck does play a part.
hmm. I agree. Well, this is very cool. I've enjoyed
It's
this.
been
So
fun.
your new podcast, never mind the Dam Busters, how do people access it?
It's available via Amazon Music and
You
all
haven't
your
worked this one out yet, have
Spotify
you?
and
You
such
haven't
like. I
memorized
haven't,
it.
no. It's available via the usual places, Spotify and
Okay.
such like. So just search for it. There is a website as well that you can directly
I will
access, and then people download it
share the
on.
link to Haunted Histories for you. So if people want to have
Oh,
a
thank you.
have a listen to that. But yes, Jane knows her stuff. I've listened to a few of
She
her sort
does.
of
She does.
talks, lectures online. She's written a few books as well, hasn't she?
She has.
On
Yeah, she's got
yeah, I
another
thought
one
she
coming out soon as well.
yeah, I thought she did. I thought she did. I know we follow each other, but there's so many amazing people I like to read and follow. I kind of have to well, I can't and then I go off on side quests and read things about the night witches instead. So what else
Mm.
haven't you got a few quite important events you're going to be talking at later this year, JJ?
So I do, yeah. So I'm at the Weird Ways Fest
You do
talking about
indeed.
talking about Bomber Command and Operation Overlord and the memory of it. So
That would be
if
Al
this is
Murray
whetted
and
your
that
appetite,
that would be Al Murray and James Holland's event, yes?
it is, yes,
Yeah,
yeah.
I would give my right kidney to be asked to speak at that event about something.
I was absolutely flattered
I think you
to be
messaged me and
asked,
said, guess
and
what? You actually sent me a message and said, guess what? I was like, you bastard.
it's great. I've chatted to Al a few times. I've not really chatted to James much, but yeah.
And so you got We Have Ways.
So I've got Weird Ways. I've also got a talk at the RAF Museum coming up next week, actually.
What, London? London, Hendon.
No,
Oh,
Cosby
oh, the Midlands one.
in the Midlands.
Hmm.
Yeah. What else have I got? I'm going to be teaching in Cambridge over the summer, but I've also got a lecture coming up in Oxford in September, which is going to be about the Dieppe raid and the air contingent there. So I've got a
Ah,
few things lined
Dr.
up.
O'Keefe's speciality.
It is, yeah,
Mm.
the wonderful David. Yeah,
Mm. So, well,
hopefully I do it justice.
it is amazing to see the years I've known you and to see the success and recognition you're starting to get. Like I love it because I can see things.
Oh,
I
thank you.
know him. I know if I send him a message, he replies to me.
I do, of
So
course I do.
you do exactly. Well, that's what I mean. I know you enough that if I send you a message, you will reply. Whereas some people are like, who's she? I think that's how El Murray feels when I've been trying to get him on this show to talk because we were going to do a tank ghosts of tanks
Oh,
and things. And he said he'd love to come on, and then it went quiet. So next time you speak to him, just nudge him and say
yeah,
that
I
she's
will.
actually
I will.
she's
Yeah.
quite good fun to talk to. So I've met I know James Holland, he probably won't remember me, but we did a show on the Dattenbusters.
Mm.
Um And I told him a ghost story about the dam busters, which he didn't know, that he was quite intrigued about. I'll tell you that one off air. But
Yeah.
yeah, so, well, it's been absolutely wonderful talking to you, James. I always enjoy chatting with you,
Yeah.
and we'll have to meet up for a pint soon
Great
so we
fun.
can just talk for hours
Yeah,
and
definitely.
hours and hours about bombers, and, you know, your other half can
Ghost
sit.
stories and such like.
Yeah, we'll bring the other halves with us, and they can sort of either join
Absolutely,
in or
yeah.
look really, really bored. Um, wow. So please thank James for me. Hopefully soon it'll be Dr. James Jefferies, though, won't it?
Couple of years time, yeah, I'll be
Couple of
Doctor
years, I'll be
Jefferies. Yeah.
ready for the book coming out. You've got to have it before when the book comes out, so you can have your name as Dr. James Jefferies as the author.
They, they do match up at the same time
Yeah,
as it stands. So yeah.
it needs to. It needs to, just to sort of just a little bit more, get that. Well, thank you so much, James, for taking the time
Oh, it's
out.
been wonderful. I've absolutely loved this. It's been great
And
fun.
I'll tell you those ghost stories once we're off air, because you probably want to hear those. But
I do.
on that note, I have no idea who my next podcast is. Well, I do have a bit of an idea who it might be with, but there's a few. So you'll just have to tune in. But do make sure you follow Haunted Histories to find out all the different shows that are coming up. And if there are any particular areas you want me to look into, let me know. I probably know someone who knows someone, and I can get them on as a guest and, well, talk nonsense for an hour, because I probably won't have a Scooby what they're talking about. I'll just make it sound like I do. But on that note, thank you again for listening, and I hope to see you soon. Have a good evening, sleep tight, and don't worry too much about things that go bump in the night.